My name is Aaron Wise. Welcome to the Wise Mortgage Podcast. This is episode number 3, I believe, today. And we're lucky enough to have Chris and Chris from Compass on today, which is fantastic. So welcome.
Hello.
So yeah, we're super happy to have you guys on. I feel like we've known each other for a long time. And this will be a good opportunity to kind of dive into some details of what's going on in today's market a little bit, dive into some details about you guys, your team, how you do some things differently, better than others. And yeah, we can kind of get into those things. I think the main thing and the main reason why I have this available and why I want to put this information out there is, and I kind of talk about this in each episode, is right now, I feel like when people are buying real estate, it's harder than ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is just one of those things that unless you're aligned with the right person or the right team of people, it can be really frustrating. It can be all the adjectives, right? I mean, I've seen people lose out on their dream home because they're not aligned with the right team, albeit an attorney or a lender or a realtor or a home inspector. Like, we all have those thoughts. So what I try to do is keep this like very down to earth, and this is going to work really well because I feel like you guys fit this mold really well, is just keeping things down to earth, easy to understand, putting them in easy to comprehend categories. So that way everybody from somebody that's making $16 an hour to the person that's making $1 million a year could potentially listen to us, watch us for half hour, 45 minutes, whatever it's going to be, and be able to gain some good nuggets on this thing, just enough to kind of fill in some of the gaps, and then want to talk to us afterwards about maybe some things that might even apply to them. That was a heck of an intro. So
Good job.
yeah. A couple things. I think the first question I'm sure you guys get a lot is, when did you start working together? Why did you start working together? Like, just kind of talk to us about how that sort of came into being with whatever you're willing to divulge.
I started in 2008,
Yeah.
right before the Great Recession.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, the timing wasn't so great. But my real estate worked well for my objectives, which were to have some flexibility. I still had teenagers at home.
Yeah.
I still had a father who was on the older side, who I knew was going to need help. And I also had been my own boss for a while. I didn't want to be punching a clock. But there were also a lot of things about real estate that I thought I would do well at. I thought I like homes, but more I like hanging out with new people and meeting new people. And it just felt like something that would be a good fit for me.
Yeah.
So I started in 2008. And because the world basically imploded, I just decided that I was going to just focus on learning as much as I possibly could.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't going to expect to be making much money for a while.
Right out of the gate. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just took a lot of classes. I worked for Coldwell Banker, where I actually ended up meeting you.
Yeah. So you started in
I started at Coldwell, yeah. And it was a large office that had a full-time trainer. I wanted to learn the right way of doing things out of the gate, and I wanted to have resources, and I knew people who worked there, and because there's a lot of us out there.
Yeah.
And if you've, been living anywhere for a while, you're going to come across, at least one or two of us.
Sure.
So I knew some people that worked there. Yeah, so then I just really, really focused on learning as much as I could. I took a lot of classes down at Chicago Association of Realtors about foreclosures and short sales and the things that we needed to know back then, which I ended up using because people were in such distress.
Yeah.
And eventually I got my first piece of business, and then then it took off from there. But it took a while to get my feet under me, only because the economy was just in such distress.
Yeah. What a wild time to start. I mean,
I really still felt convinced that this was the right path for me. So I just put my head down and just had some faith that it was going to turn around.
Yeah.
So it did. And, real estate is a long game. You play it, you have a deal, and then 3, 4, 5 years later, they come back to you. And if you've kept in touch with them, ideally they come back to you and they sell with you, and then they buy something else. And so that started to happen. And so my business started to build.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Chris was kind of winding down his career in advertising.
I heard it was a Mad Men background. I might have read that somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It was, I worked for a couple of big ad agencies in Chicago.
Yeah.
It was nice that I was able to support us, and so it didn't really matter that you weren't bringing in a lot of money those first couple of years.
I was fortunate in that way.
Yeah.
A lot of people left the industry in 2008 through 2012
Yeah.
because they couldn't pay their bills.
Yeah, it was tough. That was just a
Yeah.
crazy snippet. What was the first conversation? Who initiated it? And who was like, hey, what would you
I
think
kinda remember,
about?
Yeah.
You do?
Well, I do.
Yeah.
Your business was, you were getting busier and busier and
Yeah.
thinking of hiring an assistant.
Yeah.
And since I was getting a little less enamored with the
Yeah.
Mad Men agency life,
Yeah.
I said, well, why don't you hire me? And you said, not unless you get your license, because you won't be able to do all the things I need you to do.
Yeah.
And so I quickly took the classes, got my license, and thought in the beginning I would continue to freelance in advertising
Yeah.
and work for you. And I would say in the first year, I wound up bringing in, a lot of
Several
clients
deals.
from my world, from, my,
Yeah.
my clients and colleagues in advertising.
Yeah.
And then we just sort of, after a year, I think you said, you're not my assistant anymore, you're my partner.
Yeah, right.
As a career move, should we do this? But
Yeah.
then you had real questions about, how
What's
will it
that
affect
gonna-
our marriage?
Yeah,
you
what's
know?
that going to be like?
yeah.
How are we going to do this all day and then
Be
you know,
normal in the evening.
in the
Yeah,
evenings
make
and
dinner.
weekends and
Yeah.
all these things? And so I did some little market research of my own and went
Yeah.
and talked to some people who are in the business with their
Yeah.
partners.
She checked your references probably.
Well, I checked his references for sure. And then, but yeah, I just said, how do you do it?
Yeah,
How are you, do you stop talking about real estate at 5? Of course, the answer was no. We were definitely concerned. And so we went back and forth a lot. And then finally, I think one of us, probably me, just said, we're just not going to know until we try it.
Yeah.
And it's not, irreversible.
You can fire him at any moment, really.
I can fire him
She
at any
still
moment.
could.
I still could.
There's some days I pray for that.
And how long have you been with me now? You didn't say. Since
10 years. Yeah. It's since
2015?
2015 I got my license.
Since
Yeah.
2015. But it's worked out really well. I mean, we've figured out the areas that are my strengths and the areas that are his strengths. He goes and does his thing. I do my thing. There's a lot of running around. It's kind of rare that we're actually both in the office at the same time, just
Yeah.
working together. And I actually really love those times.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's worked out just fine. And in a way, our children had grown up and gone off to college and flown the nest.
Yeah.
And it's been nice to have something that we have in common
Yeah.
that we can talk about together.
Well, it was funny because we were both in advertising in New York when we met, and we had that in common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for years and years and years, we had like parenting, like getting the kids into grade school and into high school and into college. And then when they were both gone, it was like we didn't have that project in common anymore. And so the timing was perfect.
Yeah, it worked out really
to
well.
have this as something in common that we could bounce ideas off each other.
Yeah.
And we've never really talked about it constantly.
That's tricky. I can tell you firsthand,
Yeah.
as somebody that's worked with my spouse, which was lovely. It's when do you kind of turn it off? And I like it that you guys sort of had discussed it and checked it out. And mine with Emily was a little bit more, she was just miserable at her job. And I'm just like, hey, just do it. And for better or for worse, it was just, we're just going to do this and hope it all works out. But I like that you guys sort of had a little bit of a blueprint more than most. And I feel like that is a very smart way to go about it, to just sort of set the template as much as you can. I think you always kind of veer off a little bit at times here and there, but I think, following a nice set of,
it's worked out great. I love real estate. I'm really happy that I pursued it and then that you joined, and we've had a really good time.
Yeah.
And for me, as an Act Two career, it just really kind of re-energized me.
Yeah.
Having something, new to do and learn.
It shows too, by the way. I mean, you guys, your energy levels are always up whenever I mean, we see each other at I think we see each other more than I see you because I'm going to closings a lot, and I just feel like, I don't know. I think it's really interesting too, most partners like in life, you're not super the same. You sort of fit together because maybe your strength is this and your strength is that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's always an advantage because not everybody's the same. Not every buyer is the same. Not every seller is going to have the same sort of set of personality traits and all that. So the way that you guys can kind of bounce through that is super advantageous compared to even just another team that has, I feel like with teams, a lot of times it's people try to hire like-minded individuals that really have a lot of times the same strengths and the same weaknesses. I see that all the time. And so I just feel this dynamic has got to be super, super helpful with figuring out who's going to bounce off better with Joe
Particular
Blow.
clients.
We
Yeah.
start off
Yeah.
every listing presentation, every buyer's presentation together.
Yeah.
And we kind of get a sense, and I think our clients get a sense of which one of us would be more fun to work with, or
Sure.
which one comes off as a little smarter and knowing the neighborhood.
staying out of that one.
and
I'm
Can't
staying out of
imagine
that
what
one.
he's
Yeah.
talking about.
But that's been great too. And then once we have an accepted offer, whichever one of us happen to be the one doing that, we'll just follow through
Yeah.
so that we're not tripping over each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, whichever one of us was with them and then wrote the contract, then we finish out the deal.
Yeah.
But especially with sellers, we want to definitely gauge, you meet with them in person and then you gauge their personality. Who's the decision maker? Is this person, they talk a lot about that, knowing what they're looking for. So some are looking for information, they're looking for data, and then you might have others who are much more touchy-feely. And so depending on who is the decision maker and, their dynamic and then our dynamic, it sort of naturally becomes either I'm the main person that's communicating with them or that Chris is. And it just sort of works out. And he's a lot more, I would say, assertive. I don't know if that's the right term.
I'm not sure where you're going with it.
Well, like he loves to negotiate down to the penny, and all of that. And I like to negotiate too, but I don't love it the way he does.
Some clients, their eyes glaze over when I start talking about
Yeah,
that stuff.
yeah.
So you kind of gauge what is it they're
That's
looking
fantastic
for.
because most people aren't going to present it in that. You're right. Each person has more probably for sellers, but I feel like each person kind of has their factual, emotional. I'm sure there's a bunch of other categories, and sometimes there's just a blend, and it is what it is. But I like the way that you put that. You kind of do fall in one of those sort of buckets, right? Not to like simplify it too much, but I do feel like there's value in looking at it through those lenses.
Yeah.
Or sometimes multiple lenses, or sometimes multiple lenses at different times. You know what I mean? Depending on what's going on. But I like the way that you just put that. Like, I could even see presenting that to, I don't know, at the time, like within a listing presentation, like,
Guess
tell
what
us
we
how
do.
you want us. I could see people wanting to sort of look at it through those lenses. And I always try to, when I'm doing anything, obviously I'm working with buyers more, but when I'm doing those types of explanations and, walking through process of whatever it is, making it easy to understand sort of buckets or categories, it just saves them a lot of worry and
I was going to say anxiety.
anxiety. Yeah, because people, their hair gets blown back a lot because there's so much information
There's a lot of
and
information.
the internet
it's-
and their
it's-
relatives and their
Right.
friend and their Uncle Bob that did a deal 5 years ago that somehow is still licensed, and everybody's got an opinion. I always tell people when they get married, have kids, and buy real estate, that's when everybody chimes in. Those reasons matter more now, I feel like, than they ever have. I go back to the word, I heard this, I don't know, a month or so ago, granular. Like everything is so granular and itty bitty details. It kind of, when you talk about the market a lot, it is an example, like you get these sort of market headlines that are nationwide,
Right.
or even Chicago headlines.
Even Chicago it's such a large city.
There are
It's
77 neighborhoods in
There's
Chicago.
Yes.
They all are reacting differently to
You can just
market conditions.
drill it down. It's almost, you have to use these filters, right? So it's
Right.
okay. what state, what city, what neighborhood, what type of property are you trying to buy within that neighborhood? Because the conversation is going to be different if you're looking at a multi-unit, totally different than if you're looking at a condo. Those details are so important. If you try to look at things through this big, wide lens, it's going to be rough sledding, and you're going to have to learn through pain, unfortunately. But if you get into those itty bitty, just kind of tiny granular details right out of the gate, you're going to save yourself a lot of time, a lot of effort.
And they can just know what to expect.
Yeah, out of the gate. And it's way easier to digest situations and things that happen to you if you expect that they might happen. Right. But if you
and
go
a lot of that comes with experience.
100%. I like in the beginning that you guys spend a good chunk of time. Anybody that I've talked to that's had a good level of success and that it's been sustainable has never glossed over process and has always taken the time in the beginning, however long it takes. Some people want 30 minutes and they're out of there. Some people want 2 hours and 30 minutes.
We've never been able to do it in 30
But you don't.
Yeah.
But some people are, hey, listen, I'm a CEO. You got 30.
Yeah,
Tell me
no,
what I need
that's
to know.
true.
We'll fill in details as we go. You get just that style, right?
For sure.
And then
Yeah, let's get
there's some
to it.
people that will keep you there. I feel like in the beginning, that time is so valuable.
So well spent.
Yeah, that if you do the opposite and gloss over that, the process is just going to be rough. Even when it should be easy, it's going to be rough.
Well, and you
don't know what to
forget, if you
expect.
normally get a chance to sit down and kind of go through the buying or the selling process. So we have a whole document for our buyers and sellers, and we use it just as a kind of a loose agenda. It's just the buying process and the selling process.
Yeah.
And they're each a page long. If they want lots and lots of details, we can do that.
On
if they
one
don't,
part of it.
Right.
Right.
And if there are other parts where they're not interested and we just keep it moving.
then we just keep it moving. We can kind of tell, and we just sort of
Yeah.
tailor it. But it does give us a chance to kind of just say, this is what the whole thing is going to go through.
That's the roadmap,
And then we can always, when the process is happening, we'll say, well, go take a look at the timeline. This is where we're at. Or this is what's going to happen in the next 3 weeks.
So the next couple steps and then regroup thing is something that I've always stuck with, which is we're going to do a couple things. I joke about it that I call it take it in small chunks, right? But it's really just take it in small pieces. Sometimes people have so many things going on that it's hard for them to remember more than 2 or 3 things, right?
We often say, refer back to that timeline. This is where we're at in the timeline.
Right.
This is what's going to come next.
Or let me just go through this with you again.
Yeah.
I mean, we're always open to just rediscussing, and that's totally fine. There's a lot of information.
Yeah.
And I always say this isn't rocket science, but there are a lot of moving parts, and our job is to get you through the process in as the least stressful manner as possible.
Although these days it's about getting the best deal, but it's also about
Getting the
in a
deal.
multiple bid and there are 10 offers.
Yeah.
What is going to give your offer an advantage?
Yeah.
And I feel like we've gotten really pretty good at it's not just about price. Here are all the other things that are negotiable that could give you an edge.
That is clutch. We could talk about that all day. Just those, the levers, right?
There's certain neighborhoods and certain price points where we can say you can expect to be going up against other buyers. Just like you, they're looking for the same thing you're looking for, and anything that's good, you're going to be going up against others.
They're almost non-negotiables right now. It's almost
They're
you're
almost
following a
non-negotiables.
template. Yeah,
That's right.
The whole as-is thing, your earnest
As
money,
is.
just
There's
all
so
those
many
things.
contingencies that are getting waived.
For sure, for sure.
Appraisals.
And you just hope you're not making a mistake with any of them.
Right.
Market is going to continue to rise, barring any kind of world event or something like the Great Recession, which was terrible, and it took a long time to recover from that. But otherwise, real estate has tended to go on the
we've
upward.
done pretty well.
Sometimes up, sometimes down, but over time, the line trends upward.
I would agree, especially in neighborhoods in Chicago. I would leave the loop out of that equation. I feel like it's harder right now for them to recover because of some other circumstances, but I do feel like that will eventually repair itself.
Right, and especially there are a lot of really good CPS schools, and a lot of people want to stay in the city and raise their kids in the city.
Yeah.
So if you're living in a neighborhood that has a good school, it's a very solid investment.
I would agree. It's interesting how schools can just drive market.
Oh, yeah.
It is Very interesting how that
right.
works.
Another thing that a lot of our younger buyers kind of like about us
Yeah.
is that
You're conscious of that?
we had to get our kids into the grade schools. We had to get them into high school,
Yeah.
which is even harder than getting them into college.
Yeah. Yeah. We all know used to carry one of those books and it had all the CPS schools in it and like how they're rated.
Mm-hmm.
And then it had just notes on each school. I mean, it was detailed.
That was
But
when
again,
people had books.
Right.
Now it's all online, and
it
we
was a
tell
real
them where
book.
to go
Like you
to
could
find
hold
out.
it, and it had pages.
But we can set
Yeah.
up a search based on school, on schools that are only rated a 6 out of 10 or better.
For sure.
Which some clients, that's what they want to do.
Yep.
There's some clients that are like, we're probably going to send our kids to private school,
Yeah.
so that's not as important to us,
Yep.
and they can live in a nice neighborhood
Tell us how far we have to
that
drive.
isn't priced higher because it is a go-to,
Yeah.
highly rated CPS school.
Yeah.
They have more choices. And there's some great neighborhoods in Chicago.
Yeah.
Amazing
Yeah.
neighborhoods.
Did you guys always make a conscious decision to go to closings? Like, did that
Yeah,
kind of fade
before the
away?
pandemic, we always did.
Yeah.
Then during the pandemic, we didn't, and I think a lot of agents have sort of gotten out of that habit. But we have started again, going every time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
for the past couple of years.
Yeah. I always say, one thing is going to happen that you're not prepared
Yeah.
for,
Yeah.
and we've been there.
Sure.
It's so much better to be there in person, to be able to
Yeah.
hold their hand or explain
And
it, or
just say,
step
"It's
out and make
okay."
a phone call.
I always remember there was an attorney that kind of would show up at a lot of the closings that I would go to. And I always noticed that when things would happen, he would kind of just freak out a little bit on the title company, just kind of like short fuse type thing. And what I always noticed was he was a terrible attorney for first-time home buyers, because if you're a first-timer, you're looking like if the title company says something to your attorney, the first thing you're going to do is look at your attorney and read their reaction, and
You want them to stay calm.
very much. And so if they're kind of freaking out, that makes you very uneasy,
my
and that makes
gosh.
you freak out, and it's just a very uncomfortable. So I would always have to be like, hey, don't worry about it. This is fine. It's going to be
This
okay.
happens.
So I feel like that environment, I like to go to help control that environment, frankly, like for very selfish reasons, cut this or not. I feel like if you are not at the closing, you can be an easy target as a lender. I've had title company people say to everybody at the closing, not knowing that I was the lender that was sitting there, hey, we sent these docs to the title or to the lender, funding docs, 15 minutes ago. They're taking forever. They walk out of the room. I can check on Teams with my closer, and she'll be like, yeah, we just got them like 2 minutes ago. I'm like, if I wasn't here, everybody's kind of like,
Right.
why can't Aaron's company get with the program,
No,
So-
we love that you come to our closings.
High five.
We
I love it
love
too.
that.
And I love just that. I feel like that gives that stamp of approval for that buyer. And it's always been a big deal. It's not about taking the goofy photo at the end, although that's kind of fun sometimes. When did you guys start doing the mug, by the way?
Mugs?
I love taking those goofy photos.
Yeah.
I never brand them because I feel like people want it to just be them.
And we should say the photo is of the clients, usually
with
the
keys.
buyers.
The buyers are holding
The
up
buyers
the keys.
Yeah.
holding up the
Yeah.
On
keys.
the happiest day of their life.
Yes.
And
So
so,
far.
the more we can remind them how happy that day was. So then
Yeah.
we started taking those photographs and putting them on coffee mugs. And it gives us an excuse like a month later to go back and check on them.
Well, first you
And
would put them on social media.
So we take those pictures
Yeah.
of them holding up the keys, and yes, we put it on Instagram, we
Yeah.
put it on Facebook, and a lot of our buyers feel like that's a nice way to let people know they've bought a place and they're moving.
It's cute. It's not cringy, guys. I feel like
Thank
there
you.
are a lot of cringy things that happen. We see it all.
Yeah.
We're pretty active on the Instagrams and the Facebooks.
So we
see
try
some
not to
pretty rough
brand
stuff.
it because it really is more for the buyers.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we surprise them by putting that picture on a coffee mug
Yeah.
and giving it to them a month or two later.
And it's a
pretty cool.
way for us to go back to them
Yeah.
and say hello.
Yeah.
And no one's
It's-
going to throw away a mug with their picture on it, and it doesn't have our picture on it, and has a little logo on the back.
Yeah. Yeah.
People
I
love
like
it.
that.
People
Yeah.
do like it.
People love it. But it's just an excuse for us to be able to go back and tell them again how much we enjoyed working with them and saying hello and, just sort of keeping in touch. So, it's worked out really well.
It's funny how you kind of get to be, I always joke, you kind of get to be best friends with somebody for 30 days. And then
Yes.
you kind of don't talk to them for a little bit. I read through some of your Real Producer stuff. You had made a couple of rules that you guys would go by when you decided to work together. And I feel like I want to say a couple of these and then see if you have any advice for people who are going to work with their significant other. Don't always go into the office or don't always go home together. In other words, travel separately to and from the office once in a while. Love it.
We do that all the time.
Now we do that all the time.
Depending on how the morning goes.
We have 2 cars.
Morning coffee.
And they're the exact same car.
I did read
They're
that as well.
Both
I love that.
silver HRVs.
Well, we both like
Twin
the
cars.
silver, so
I like that.
neither of us
So
wanted
same,
to.
We came here
same model,
separately
same
today.
color, by the way.
Yes.
Same
Yes.
color. All right, next one. Make separate friends. I thought that was so smart. Like, I don't know, just have your own circle a little bit, will you? I was
For sure we do that.
so for selfish reasons, I was looking at this through the lens of when Emily and I were working together, and I was like thinking, God, if we would have just set up some rules, or some guidelines.
Well, I actually think that rule, make separate friends and have your own life,
Yeah.
is just a good rule
Yeah,
for marriage.
for sure.
Because you want to have things that are just yours.
Yeah. You said give each other some space, which I like. So that way you're not, laying there on the couch at 9:00 being like, hey, did you get those listing photos?
Oh, my goodness.
I don't
Yeah.
think that would work well. And the last one, which I love, is just keep a sense of humor about it, which we obviously have, all of us in this group.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because, it's just mandatory to get through this thing, So as I give you that short list, which I'm sure you probably remember now, but is there any question or any tidbits that you would give to somebody that's going to go work in real estate with their significant other? What do you think?
So when you did your research into what, married couples working together, and I reached out to a director who I worked with a lot in advertising, who has become a realtor. And I asked him for coffee, could we just talk about it a little bit? And he said, here's what you have to remember. When you were in advertising in the corner office, you knew everything and everybody knew you knew everything. But now you're working for your wife. You know nothing. She knows everything. And you just have to remember that. And I did go into it it was years ago, if you can remember. I did go into it like, tell me how you do things. And I'm not the boss anymore. In this situation, I'm the low man on the totem pole. And I want to learn your way of doing things. And so, if a couple's going to work together, chances are they're not starting in real estate together.
Right at the exact same
So
time.
whoever is the lead agent, the other one needs respect for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
And just listen. And, eventually, he got, experienced enough that he could start to speak up, which I didn't love so much, but no, I'm kidding.
I knew this was going to be fun.
Yeah. But, it's much more egalitarian, but it's true. I mean, I had 7 years of experience. And also, you'd been listening to me work at the kitchen table and all that, but it's not the same as actually doing it.
Yeah.
So that worked out really, really well. I think that actually working, if one of you wants to work at home and one of you wants to go into the office, I think that's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah.
You don't want to both be together all the time.
Yeah.
So I think separating, what was the rule? Be on your own sometimes.
Yeah. Don't always go in
Don't
together.
always go in
Don't
together.
Always leave together.
Don't always leave together. Don't
Yeah.
always be together.
Yeah.
Naturally, the business is going to separate you eventually, but in the beginning, I think it's really important to have, for each of you to have your own space. Find your own friends, even within the office.
Yeah.
You've got people that at our office, and you'll say, yeah, you know him, blah, blah, blah. And I'll be like, I don't think I do, actually. And so that works out great because he's got people he knows. I have people I know.
And you've got people that you've known for a long time.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of people that I've known.
The business kind of works that way.
When
right?
you're in the business, after a while, people move around and
Yeah.
all of that. And so I do know people that you don't know.
But even when we work at home, we'll work in most of the time in different rooms so we can focus.
Yeah.
And if we have to, we'll text each other.
Yeah.
And
Or
then,
yell to each other.
and then there are things that's like, okay, now I'm ready to talk, and we'll get together. We do have an office at home with desks next to each other.
Yeah.
And there are things that we'll definitely plan, like we're going to sit across from each other and we're going to figure this one out.
Yeah. So thank you for tuning in to the Wise Mortgage Podcast. Thanks again to Chris and Chris for coming on here today.
Thanks for having us.
I think
it was fun.
Yeah, I think we put out some good information. I think we had a good time doing it too. If you want any further information on looking to buy, looking to sell, even thinking about it, dipping your toe in, anything like that, we'll give you some of our information here. So again, Aaron Wise, Instagram, Facebook is all The Wise Mortgage. And don't look up Aaron Wise, the professional golfer. You will not get correct mortgage information.
And to get in touch with us, all you'd have to search for is Team Chris and Chris. You could add a compass, but first things that will pop up are our Instagram, our Facebook, our website, our agent pages on compass.com. It's Team Chris and Chris. It's like we plan to have the same name to make it easy.
I love it. I love it. All right. That's all we got.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, guys.